big question on everybody's mind right now is what's next, right? So if things start to settle down, if the economy gets a little bit back more to normal, what is next with everything in the real estate industry, from recruiting to, our new business models emerging? What happens with leads? All of those questions are questions that everybody are asking as we get back to whatever the new normal is, right? The cool part is we already have the answer, okay? And the reason why is because this is really an age-old question. This isn't a brand new question of what's next, okay? Let's dig into that in just a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk specifically today about one piece of what's next. Okay, so we're going to dig into culture and the difference that makes on determining what's next for you and your brokerage when it comes to recruiting. Okay, there's a bunch of different facets to it. Look for some other on demand, and look for some other downloadables, and there will be information on how to approach what's next from a bunch of different standpoints. Today we're going to talk about culture. You can also go to the resource library and you can download the companion document that goes along with this. Okay, so like I said, this is an age-old question, right? So real estate models, they always changed. So real estate models, they always changed, right? So back in the beginning, right, there was a Century 21, which kind of changed things from being just a traditional independent broker. We got into Remaxes and everything, all the way to your Compasses and EXPs this day, these days, right? So things are constantly changing. Zillow changed things in real estate, right? The MLS changed things in real estate. The MLS going to a digital platform online changed things in real estate. So it's not just, the key thing to keep in mind is change isn't just about, don't get wrapped up in that it's about, brokers' roles, right? And it's not just about splits, and it's not just, about the agent's roles and lead acquisition and technology and leverage and tools and systems. It's not all of those things. Of course, they're all factors, and those are all pieces of the puzzle that are constantly moving when it comes to change and when it comes to looking at what's next. The funny thing is, everybody thinks this is the big one, right? So everybody thinks that this is the change that's going to turn everything upside down and that the whole world is going to be different in real estate because of this change. The key thing to do is look at your culture and go back to what is fundamental and see whether or not you are prepared for change or not. Okay, and whenever it comes to whenever it comes to culture, should you be worried, really depends on a lot of factors. But we're going to start on, is your culture adaptable? And what I mean by adaptable, we're going to go over a few different points here that are going to hopefully help you out if you roll your sleeves up. But these things all impact how you recruit. And whenever I summarize all of this, we'll kind of talk a little bit more specifically about that. But let's dig into the difference that your culture adaptability is going to make a difference in you being able to tackle what's coming next with whatever happens in the real estate industry. Okay. So, number one is, do you adjust your communication style? Okay, so let me tell you what I mean by communication style. And all those changes that I mentioned before, the broker's role and the commission splits and the tools and systems and the agent's role, lead acquisition, whether it was, Century 21 entering the market in the 60s and 70s and Remax in the 70s and 80s, and then all of the new models that have come out. A big part of what happened is the path of communication, meaning that the customers quit talking to the broker as much and they started talking to the agent more in all of those evolutions. So how they talk to them changed also, right? So it went from phone to faxes and emails and texts and all that kind of stuff, and through digital platforms and all of that, right? So how people communicated has changed. You as a broker have to understand that how you're communicating when it comes to recruiting especially also has to adapt. Your communication, whenever you're recruiting, isn't just about, did I call the agent and did they call me back? Yes, that's extremely important. It's not just about, did I send a handwritten note and did they like it? Yes, that's important, but that's not the only thing that it's about. It's also about some types of unilateral communication like video, right? Are you using video in your recruiting process? Because we're in a culture of content convenience. You've heard that in other podcasts, you've heard that in other webinars and other on-demands that we've done here at Prospect Boomerang. There's a culture of content convenience. People are absorbing the information that they want when they want. What that means is that how they're being communicated has changed. Is your culture and has your culture adapted to that when it comes to recruiting? If it has not adapted to that, you're going to be left behind. You need to make sure that you're taking it serious, that people want communication, how you talk to them and what you say. They want it to be convenient for them and a method that works for them, and that means in their hand whenever they sit down and they're waiting for their food to show up at a restaurant that they're eating at. That's when they're going to consume your content. That's not necessarily when they're going to take your phone call. So how and when you communicate with them is going to make a difference. How often you communicate with them makes a difference. All of that is going to be important in what's next with recruiting. Okay. So the next one is how adaptable and scalable are you with your scope? Okay, with your scale and scope. So how much is that changing? How much is that different? How much is that better? Are you able to do more of what you're doing on a larger scale with less effort than it takes to automatically duplicate it? It has to be like compounding interest. As you do things in your brokerage, they have to be able to grow and get bigger without the effort becoming directly proportional to it growing and being bigger. Okay, so an example of tools and systems are the key to this, right? So I mean, I think we know that. Leverage is the key to this. I think we know that. Again, going back to the examples of what was disruptors in the market, back in the beginning when franchise systems first came into place, how leads, were collected, right? All of that has changed compared to how it was in the past, right? So a couple of the big changes, with the lead part of it was, the lead doesn't come to the broker first and the broker disseminate it, which is how it used to happen, way back in the day. The lead also doesn't go to the MLS and go directly to the agent like how it happened. Now there's a bunch of different ways that leads are being disrupted and redistributed and put into systems, and all of that is going to impact how easily it is for you to scale, because if you're not in charge of the communication, if you're not in charge of the flow of things, how easily your tools and systems leverage those things in order for you and your agents to be able to grow efficiently is going to be dramatically impacted. So you have to take serious what's happening in communication and make sure you've got your hands wrapped around it. Make sure you're training your agents on it. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you're talking about it in recruiting when it comes to communication, but also your tools and systems. Don't overlook talking about the tools and systems and how they can scale with the agent's business. So if you're talking to an agent and one of the hot buttons is that they're, constantly contemplating being part of a team or growing a team, you have to make sure that they understand that you're going to assist them and that your tools and systems are going to assist them as they scale in their business. They're not going to need to go get something else and something new and change things in order for them to be able to scale. They're going to be able to use the tools and systems that you have to be able to scale their business with the team that they're on or with the team that they're starting. They have to know that it can scale and it can adapt to the scope of work that they need. The third thing is, the motivation is your culture, and the motivation in your culture, does it adapt and does it change? So what I mean by that is, how do you talk about change whenever you're in your sales meetings? How do you talk about change whenever you're in your recruiting meetings? Are you excited about it? Are you forward thinking with it? Are you reading articles so that you understand what's happening with change? Or are you someone that is acting like you're afraid of it, or acting like it doesn't exist, acting like you don't approach it? If an agent is contemplating joining your office, or if they are already there and you're re-recruiting them, and you're not having conversations about how you as a leader are staying ahead of the change that's happening in the market around them, they're going to adapt and go to a different real estate brokerage where they think those people have figured out what's next. Now, agents aren't always really good about looking down the line and seeing what they need to do to adapt their business. That's why they want to be around a leader and in a company and in a system that is constantly reassuring them that they're motivated by the changes that are happening, and that even if you don't see it, you're comfortable adapting to it as those changes happen. So what happened with COVID is a perfect example, right? Some companies absolutely shined, and some companies just disappeared, almost went away. They became non-existent in that situation because they did not act very adaptable to it, and they almost acted like it wasn't happening. They weren't out there getting in front of their agents saying, hey, this is what you need to do to make sure you stay ahead of what happens in the eyes of your customers and clients. What they were doing instead was, putting their head in their sand and hoping that it would all go away. A lot of agents moved to a bunch of different offices because they wanted to feel safe and secure by a leader and leadership and a company and a team and a system that, although they didn't have the answers, were very comfortable moving headlong straight forward into what was going on to try to forge a path so the agent didn't have to do it by themselves. You have to make sure that you're talking about whatever change is coming. Don't ignore it. Don't act like it's there. I'm not saying embrace 100% of it, but you have to act like it is motivating you to be the leader that you need it to be. Okay? So simply put, is it an opportunity or an obstacle? The people that you surround yourself with, your agents, the agents that you're recruiting, are going to want to look at you as someone that has the answer, that these are opportunities as the market changes, not obstacles, right? So, the bottom line is change is constant, right? How you prepare yourself for it, is related to your ability to accept it and via your culture being, whether it's intentional and absolute in your adaptability or not, right? Agents ultimately want you and your brokerage to lead. They want your tools and systems to be forward thinking. You have to make sure that whenever it comes to looking at what's next, that your culture is demonstrating what it is that you say you're going to be doing moving forward in the business. So a couple more things about your culture. Of course, we say this all the time, right? Your office has to have a culture of growth, right? It can't just be somebody's job. It has to have a culture of growth. Part of that culture of growth means looking at change that's happening, not embracing every bit of it as soon as it happens, but also not ignoring it. It's having a balance in your adaptability as you look forward to it. So let's make sure that whenever it comes to culture, that we're looking at communication, we're looking at scale or scope, and we're looking at how motivated you are. And all of those three things, if you pay close attention to those and lead on those three things, you'll attract those quality agents that you want to have. And as always with Prospect Boomerang, let us know how we can help, because we just want to be part of your win.